Today I want us to look at a passage in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. It says, "Take care, brethren, that there not be in any one of you an evil, unbelieving heart that falls away from the living God. But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today, so that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." Here in this passage, the Hebrew writer is talking about the need for encouragement, how all of us need this encouragement that he's talking about here. And so he says here in verse 12, the reason why he's giving this warning and this admonition that we are to not develop an evil, unbelieving heart is because this can happen to any of us. Some people believe that it's not possible for Christians to fall away and to depart from the Lord. But here in this text, we see that yes, it is possible. The Hebrew writer, as he's writing to these brethren, he calls them brethren in verse 12, the same ones that he referred to in verse 1 of this chapter as holy brethren. So these are ones, they are Christians. They're at this point faithful Christians. But there was a danger that they could develop the type of heart where they would depart from God, develop an evil, unbelieving heart that falls away from the living God. And so he wanted to prevent that. And this is something that we also should want to prevent. We don't want to develop this. We don't want our brethren to develop this type of heart. And so he says, encourage one another. Be an encouragement to others. And do this day after day as long as it's still called today. Something that is to be continuous, that is to be regular, that is urgent. He says, while it is still called today, we are to be an encouragement to others. Now, sometimes when we think about this passage, and I've done this in the past, we think about this in the context of, well, have busy lives, we have all these things going on. Well, lately what we've been doing is having a different challenge, where we have more time where we are isolated, more time where we are stuck in our homes, and in some cases not able to meet with brethren or meet with all of the brethren. This is important that we are an encouragement to others. That's why I'm doing things like these videos here, in order to try to be an encouragement to you, and hopefully it is an encouragement. And hopefully then you would turn around and find someone else to encourage, that you would be an encouragement to them, because we all need this type of encouragement. We don't want any of us to develop an evil, unbelieving heart that falls away from the living God. And he then says that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. He says, none of you. It's not to be acceptable that, well, if only one or two of the brethren in our congregation develop an evil, unbelieving heart, at least the rest of them remain faithful. We don't want this to happen to anyone. We don't want any of our brethren to fall away, to become unfaithful, to turn their back on the Lord. We don't want to see that happen. And he says there, we don't want to be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. This is what causes it. This evil, unbelieving heart that leads us away from God, it is caused by the deceitfulness of sin. Sin is deceptive. We are deceived into thinking that sin is no big deal, that sin is inconsequential, that sin doesn't lead from one to another and progressively gets worse, but that's what sin does. Sin always gets worse when we allow it to continue, when we don't recognize it and turn away from it. It always progresses. It always continues. It always gets worse. We always think we have more time, or we can make things right later, or maybe the Lord's not going to look harshly on this, or just overlook these sins. Sin is deceptive. We cannot allow ourselves to be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin, and we don't want others, our brethren, to be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. So the Hebrew writer says here that while we understand there is a danger, we could depart from the living God. We could develop an evil, unbelieving heart, even though right now, well, we don't have that type of heart. We're striving to please God. We could develop this type of heart. So we need encouragement. We need to encourage others that they don't develop this heart, because we don't want anyone to be hardened by sin. We don't want anyone to be led away. We need to recognize the deceitfulness of sin, recognize the need for encouragement, and then continually, regularly, consistently, daily strive to be an encouragement to others. And so I hope these thoughts are encouraging to you, to help you, but also to be an encouragement to you to go out and encourage someone else. Maybe you have to do it from a distance. Maybe you have to do it in a way that you haven't done it before because of the current situation that we're in. However you have to do it, be an encouragement to others and keep striving to follow the Lord.